What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActionMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're going to take a look at Janet Planet. This is the new A24 film. It's currently available on Max, and it does have audio description. This is the feature writer directorial debut of Annie Baker, who is more well known for theatrical work. So if you feel any sort of theatrical presence in this, that could be why. It it stars Julianne Nicholson as the title Janet, and the place that this film gets the title from is that she is an acupuncturist, and that is the name of her business. So in case you're wondering, is this a sci-fi? It's not a sci-fi movie. It's a coming of age story. Her daughter in the film is actually really sort of our protagonist in many ways. It's how we see Janet through the lens. It's more about watching an adult through a child's perspective than it is the adult having a child and then the adult carrying on as the lead of the film. And we see our young child actress, Zoe. I've already forgotten her last name. She's also, it's a breakthrough performance. It's a new director, new child star, and she's at camp and she doesn't want to be there. It's that summer between 5th and 6th grade, which for me was like literally like a new school. So maybe for her, that's exactly why they chose that, is because for somebody else, it was also their transition from elementary to middle school. So it feels like a big transitional phase in your life when you're like, oh my God, I'm leaving this school, the only school I've ever known, and I have to go to another strange building. Oh, and you're telling me that maybe like my friends might go to other schools? What? I don't understand this. What is happening in my life? So not that she seems to have a lot of friends. She does make a friend temporarily for like a hot second in this film, and then the film goes away. So the film, it's sort of, Janet Planet is sort of told in 3 chapters. There's devoted to the people who are orbiting Janet Planet at the time. None of them her daughter, which I think says a lot about her and her mother and the perspective and maybe what Annie is trying to say as a director here. But the first one is Wayne, played by Will Patton. That's chapter 1. And chapter 2 is Regina, played by Sofia Okonedo, and chapter 3 is Ari, played by Elias Koteas, who I really loved a long time ago in a movie called Fallen. But I mean, he's been great in a lot of things, but he was just sort of like over the top in it for like, what was he in that movie for like 5 minutes? And I was like, who's this dude? And that really drew me to following him more as a character actor. But sadly, Elias has pretty much always been a character actor. Will Patton, too, gets stuck in character actor movies a lot. Will Patton is the kind of actor that, like, I feel like should get an Oscar nomination before his career's over, because I feel like we've been sleeping on Will Patton for, like, his whole life. And I think the work that he's been turning in has been really good. Especially even some of his TV work more recently, when you see the quality of acting he's been bringing, it's very understated, and it's very like an actor who has accumulated a lot of knowledge over the length of his career, and he's really turning out the best work, and we're still just sort of like, who's Will Patton? It's kind of the same thing we did with Brian Cox, except Brian Cox had Succession, but good luck trying to get him an Oscar nomination. So Sophie, luckily already got one a while back for Hotel Rwanda. So she's just been floating in and out since then. So you see the daughter is sort of seeing the way her mom interacts with these people. Her mom once says that she truly believes that if she really focused, that she could get any man to love her. Okay. It's every other person has tried to compare this to Aftersun, which is kind of an odd comparison because I don't even know how we got there, to be totally honest, because I guess because it's A24 and people only watch A24 movies anymore, so they can't move anywhere else out of A24. Um, I see this more as, I think we've seen films sort of like this before, where the child is sort of like watching um, like a parent that's maybe not the best parent in the world, and but yet is striving to seek their attention, and the parent is going off and doing other things. I feel like we've seen this type of thing before, but we've this is like the more indie approach to it. There's also like a lot of simplicity in mundane everyday tasks. Annie Baxter, from what I understand, her theatrical direction is very much like, uh, if we're going to put you on set, we're going to make you look like you're living in the space. So you're going to be washing dishes, cooking, cleaning, sweeping. You know what I'm saying? Like wiping down the counters. Like it's very detail oriented. And in that regard, you could say there's a little bit of Perfect Days in here too, in that sort of acceptance of the um, not necessarily what makes life exciting or what makes a trailer exciting. If you look at the trailer for this film, by the way, it's completely different than the movie. The trailer has so much dialogue. The movie just kind of has a lot of, it really loves to sit in the moment. It really loves to just kind of let something wash over you. The narrative is not as obvious. The uh, each moment is sort of about being uh, watched on through the eyes of a young girl. So it's like perspective, and it's not necessarily about connective tissue. It's not necessarily about giving you all of the details, all of the backstory, all of uh, the context of a certain scene, because that's not a child wouldn't necessarily see that, which is, I guess, kind of what After Sun is about. But with After Sun, it is sort of limited to this one location, one summer, um, father daughter, and then we also get the reflection later on in life. But I get the comparison. It's a directorial debut by a female director, writer directorial debut, and they both take place with a vacation, sort of. Not really, but she just kind of goes home. She's technically on vacation at summer camp, and then she's like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. And she just kind of goes home. Um, I thought it was okay. I think A24 has some stronger films this year, but that's sort of what's great about film, is that people can like things a little bit more than other films, and other people like those films a little bit more than the films you like. Like, I like Tuesday a little bit more than this. I thought Tuesday had a little bit more to say, and was sort of interesting and complex. And I think A24 just hasn't really done much with it. But Janet Planet, lo and behold, it comes time for Indie and Gotham Spirit Awards and stuff like that, and Janet Planet probably is going to show up with some push for Julianne Nicholson, or breakthrough in direction or something like that. It just seems to have an overall higher status than something that I enjoyed a little bit more from the same studio, from A24, which was Tuesday. So both sort of about mother-daughter relationships, by the way, and both that don't necessarily explore mother-daughter relationships in a traditional way either. Very atypical ways, two different ways to tell the same story. Are you gonna like Janet Planet? I would say it depends on how much independent film you watch. If you just kind of watch Dune all the time, then probably not. I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be your thing. You may need to be a little bit more versed in the world of A24 and what it is that they like to pick up and what it is they like to put out in the world. They don't necessarily make their films, they just kind of pick up and distribute the right films that fit their vibe, which is why they don't pick up the latest Aaron Eckhart action movie that just, he seems to be like constantly making an action movie that no one is watching. But none of them at A24, because that's not what they want. That's not their vibe. They could easily pick it up and run it and be like, well, here's our Aaron Eckhart movie, requisite Aaron Eckhart movie. No, they don't want that. They don't want Chief of Station. They don't want one of those films. So this is, it's okay. Like, last year, I really loved Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I thought that was a great coming of age story, filled with beautiful performances, and it was one of my favorite films of the year. It was literally in like, I kind of like tied 4 films for Best Picture essentially, because I couldn't, at the end of the year, I was like, oh my God, this year was so strong. There were films that I absolutely adored, and I absolutely adored Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. So that's really fresh in my mind, even more so than After Sun. So when I'm comparing this sort of coming of age story and what this says about this girl and what she's going through in time, I realize I have 2 completely different viewpoints on the scenario. And this one is very much taking that sort of backstage approach, um, to sort of watching adults instead of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which is much more about Margaret's experience than it is her parents or her watching her parents have an experience. She's very much more active in her own film. Here, the daughter is much more voyeuristic in watching her mother engage with others. So the story feels always sort of truncated because you only get what she sees. You don't get a whole lot of time away from the daughter. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and it's not. I don't. Considering we keep like remaking, adapting, and there's so many films that are directly derivative of something else where you're like, I totally have seen this before. It's just some straight to video schlocky spy thing where they're all chasing after the nuclear codes or something. And you're like, well, I know this isn't technically a sequel or a remake, but damn, you know? We get stuff like that all the time. So this at least feels like it's maybe on the same bookshelf as some other things, but not necessarily like feeling like a carbon copy of something before. And I think that's pretty good. And I think if anything, that goes to show that Annie Baxter may be worth keeping around, seeing what she does next. And Zoe Ziegler, I remember her last name. I knew if I just stayed in the review long enough, I would get there. I think she does a nice job as a child actress. We'll see whether or not she does anything else. It's not as showy of a performance because she has to kind of watch more than she does participate, which for a blind film critic is a little bit harder for me to appreciate a performance that is mostly seen through her eyes than it is a participatory performance that is guided by dialogue. So Julianne Nicholson, I guess, is the big draw here. Although I thought she was okay. She didn't really play enough of an aloof mother. She didn't play enough of an overly mothering mother. Like I didn't quite get Janet's vibe that much, except for just sort of like, she wasn't too strict. She wasn't too stringent. There are no scenes of her like beating her kid. There are no scenes of her like getting passed out drunk and just like, and our kids like trying to like revive her. It's nothing like that. It's no trauma really explored here. It's just sort of like this summer. It's sort of like how we remember childhood, and we remember elements of it. We remember parts and conversations, and we remember days, but we don't remember every day unless you're, have the magical powers to be able to remember everything. Like the few people who have that, you know, memory, what is it, like photographic memory, where they can tell you exactly where they were at every date and time. Then I guess that would be cool, but most of us don't have that. Most of us are like, I kind of remember, I remember this one day we did this. It kind of feels like that, which is kind of why people are saying Aftersun. But I think there are more films that are a little bit more like that, and especially in the mother-daughter world, I feel like I've seen films like this where the daughter has seemingly sought attention from the mother, who at a time in her life when she feels like she's coming of age and isn't quite sure what to do next. So the audio description here was pretty good. I I've never like really fully gotten into acupuncture and like watched it and like done it and seen it or anything like that. But I actually felt like the acupuncture audio description scene was really pretty good. For somebody who I've only sort of seen, just sort of like people in film and television before when I could see just with the needles in them, and I never really took the time to think about like, well, how does this happen? There's something about the audio description here that really kind of highlights acupuncturists as an art form, and how things go in and out and how they do them and how she sort of searches for the right place. And it's both the film's direction and also the audio description, knowing what it is to highlight and how to say it and to bring it out. And that was probably my favorite thing about the film, was that in terms of audio description. So it's not bad. It's just not my favorite A24 film of the year. It just kind of floats as that was okay. That was good. I saw it once. I don't know that I need to see it again. I don't think it's going to end up on any of my final year end lists. However, I'm excited to see more from the director. And I already love the cast. I'm just going to be honest and say we're at a point with me and Will Patton that if he mysteriously ended up with a Best Supporting Actor nomination for this, I wouldn't even be mad. Like, there's some actors where I'm like, you can get nominated at any point in time and knock whoever else out of the race. But I don't care. I just feel like Will Patton is owed an Oscar nomination at this point in his career. So if you want to vote for him for Janet Planet, by all means. It's not his best work because he's had more dynamic performances and more things to do. But if you needed him to do an indie A24 film, the question would be, why wasn't it Minari? But, I don't know. For Will Patton, I feel like, he's been around, so let's do it. Let's make it happen. But that's it. So anyway, I'm going to give Janet Planet, I'm going to give it a B minus. It's interesting. I liked After Sun better. I thought After Sun, since everyone else in their, just every video, poor Annie, she's probably like watching all these videos and reviews, and she's like, why does everybody keep comparing my film to After Sun? And it's like, listen, I wouldn't have done it either, but everybody else wants to. So, I kind of like my perfect days thing with the everyday tasks, just sort of taking the time to just sort of sit in a moment and just be like, well, this is real life. This is what happens in real life. So, yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the other side.